This video is for Māori who get nervous about their te reo Māori pronunciation, or anyone else who cares. I've been seeing some creators get dragged recently for their te reo pronunciation, and I hate that. When I first started learning te reo Māori, I used to introduce myself and I'd say, "Kia ora, my name's Riana Te Ngahui," and I had somebody pull me aside and go, "You know your last name's Te Ngahui, eh?" And I was like, and I kind of just dealt with that whakamā by not talking for like 3 years. And even though I studied law, I would say the greatest education privilege that I've had access to was the te reo Māori teachers that I learned from, which included Karina Kelly, Panya Papa and Leon Blake, who have developed a pronunciation method to really help people break down words and understand how to correctly and confidently pronounce te reo Māori words. So I'm going to do the Temu version of that method here. So the first and most important thing to know about te reo Māori pronunciation is that our vowel sounds never change. Which sounds really simple, and it is, but in English different vowel sounds are really normal, which means it takes a bit of unlearning for us to rewire our brain to look at te reo Māori vowel sounds and trust them. And an example of this is the word capable in English. K, pa, bu. Even though that's the same letter, A, it sounds different. Whereas if we compare it to this one, ta, ra, na, ki, we've got 3 versions of the letter A and they all sound exactly the same. A, ta, ra, na, ki. And this plays out in words like mata mata. When people who are English speakers see this word, because of how the English language works, you expect there to be a difference in the vowel sounds. So we say it mata mata instead of trusting the vowel sounds and saying mata mata. So a, e, I, or u, are there 3 or 2, those vowel sounds will never change. The next step is to glide from one vowel to the next. So all Māori words end in a vowel and some Māori words start in a vowel as well. And if that's the case, we even glide from the end of the word into the start of the next one. And we already do this all the time when we say kia ora. We don't say kia ora and have that break in between the kia and the ora. We say kia ora, glide. And the Pātea Māori Club #1 hit single is an example of this. We say poi e instead of poi e. And the All Blacks haka, ka mate, ka ora is another example. Even though that's 2 words, we glide straight into it. And a bit of a longer example is this phrase, which means thank you so much. So we're saying kia ora rawa atu, which is a little bit of a tongue twister if you're not used to thinking about it in terms of a glide. So we're going kia ora rawa atu. But sometimes when people aren't familiar with this rule, it'll sound like kia ora rawa atu with those breaks in between, which affects the flow of your reo. So we've got 1, trust the alphabet, 2, glide from one vowel to the next, and the next one is stress. So by stress, what we mean is where we're going to put the most oomph in the word. And so they created this upside down triangle, and I'm not a visual learner, so this took me a while. But this upside down triangle represents where we're supposed to put the most oomph in the te reo Māori words. So the macrons or the double is basically the heaviest and gets the most oomph, so we rank it a 3. And macrons is just a, e, I, or u with the macrons on top. Or double means double-barreled vowels. Like if you're from Waikato, that's how they write these. A, e, I, da, 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 da. So this level in the middle, the combos level, it can be the trickiest to understand. And this is basically vowel pairings that roll really nicely into one sound. So an example of this is the combo O. So individually we've got A, U. And if we set it in slow motion, it would sound like A-U, A-U. But because we put it together, it rolls so nicely that it ends up sounding like O. Same thing here, ai, like how we say kei te pai. And then oi, 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 like poie. It's rolled really nicely so much that it sounds like one sound. And if you're wondering how the hell we're supposed to know which ones roll really nicely into one sound, this is the table. Sorry, I know it looks like shit, but the yellow highlighted ones are the ones that roll really nicely into one sound. So this is from the table, but you'll also probably be able to hear it, because if you think of oi, that's supposed to be an or, oi, 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 and you compare it to eor, eor, you can actually hear it. Eor, you can so clearly hear, both 2 letters, whereas oi, it's really nicely one sound. So basically all that to say, macrons or our double vowels get the most oomph at 3. Combos, those ones we just talked about, second most oomph. Singles, which is just literally letters on their own, get barely any oomph at all. So A, E, I. So now I'm going to do some examples of really simple words that just show how it works, and then do some really hard words. So firstly, every te reo Māori word ends in a vowel, which also means that every chunk of a Māori word ends in a vowel. So vowels are A, E, I, or U, and what they call consonants is every other letter. So every time you see a consonant, or basically a letter that's not a, e, or u, you know it's a new chunk of the Māori word starting. So in this word here, pene, we've got pe, then we hit an n, and we're going, oh yeah, sweet. That's a new chunk. So we've got 2 chunks in this word, pene. And then going back to this thing, are there any macrons? Are there any level 3s? Are there any combos? Are there any singles? So we've got no macrons, no combos, so we just give it a 1 and a 1, which means no oomph in this word, pene. But if we look at the word kaumatua, we can see that we've got ko, hit a M, we've got 1 chunk here, ma, hit a T, tua. So if we look at this first chunk, we've got a vowel combo here that we know is in that category. So this gets a 2 in terms of oomph. Ma, obviously we've got a macron, gets a 3. Tua, we can both still hear both vowels. So this one only gets a 1 because it's not one of those combos. So overall this sounds like kaumatua. So do we hear that this gets a bit of oomph, this gets max oomph, and this gets pretty much none. Looking at my cousin's name now, so we've got Tai, we've hit an H, Ha, Ku, Re. So we're looking for these consonants or these letters that aren't vowels, like breaking it up into its chunks. Tai, we've got one of those vowel combos, so that gets a 2. Ha, macron, 3. Ku, single, only gets a 1. Re, one of those combos, 2. So overall this sounds like Tai ha ku re. Tai ha ku re. So this word here is talking about the west coast. Te, we've only got a 1. Tai, we've got a 2. Ho, we've got a 2, one of those combos. Then we've got a 3 here. And then now we've got into a part we should break up. U, only 1. Ru, only 1. So overall, this would sound like te tai hoa uru. Te tai hoa uru. And then the last little bit is our T's. So in English, pretty much every word that starts with T has a sharp t sound in it. Like today, Tamitha and Tanya talked about playing tennis. All of those words have a t in it. But in Te Reo, it only has that t if it's a T or a 2. So the phrase they made up is T and 2, sharp like you, ta, te, to, sharp no more. And so it's still that T sound, but it just doesn't have the t. And the example that they use is the song Te Aroha. So the pronunciation is supposed to be Te Aroha instead of Te Aroha. And you'll start to pick that up and hear it. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole method. And I'm just sharing this because I wish somebody had taught me this before I got roasted for my own last name. And they teach this over a bunch of different classes with lots of practice stuff in them and in a lot more detail. So if it seems a bit overwhelming, that's case why. But yeah, that's the gist of it. Hopefully that was worth the vid.